Good morning, everyone. Hope you're well. Um, don't know if it's snowy where you are. We got to wake up to a snowstorm this morning. I'm so excited about artist in residence, producer in residence this week. We're really looking forward to hosting all of our guests. And I'd like to just take a moment to introduce our senior dean, Guillermo Acosta, to greet the group and deliver a land acknowledgement. Guillermo?
Thank you, Hannah. And good morning, everybody, and welcome to this amazing week that has been put together for all of us. I'm really looking forward to that. Now, I'd like to acknowledge the land, and for me, it's always an honor and a humbling and reflective experience to acknowledge the land. I'd like to start by quoting Jason C. Wright, our Humber's Dean of Indigenous Education and Engagement. He said, "We want to welcome you to the traditional lands that Humber College is located on. We do this to honor and respect the ancestors who lived on this land before us and currently still reside in this area. Humber invites you to join us in recognizing the living history of the land on which we are located and honor our connection to it." And there are words in this statement from Jason that are important for me to reflect on: honor, respect, recognition, and connection. But I'll elaborate on this in a minute. I'm going to proceed now to read Humber's official land acknowledgement. Humber College is located within the traditional and treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit. Known as Adobico, the place of the elders, in Mississauga language, the region is uniquely situated along Humber River watershed, which historically provided an integral connection to the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Wendat peoples between the Ontario Lakeshore and the Lake Simcoe Georgian Bay regions. Now, home to people of numerous nations, Adobigo continues to provide a vital source of interconnection for all. The honor of acknowledging the land is a responsibility that I take with great respect. There are three aspects that are highlights for me: gratefulness, interconnection, and commitment to future generations. As myself, a settler in this land, I'm grateful, but also humbled for all the opportunities that it has provided me and conscious of how much of a privilege being here is for me and my family. I'm also very respectful of the legacy of Indigenous peoples, and I'm grateful for the learnings that they have passed on and conscious of all I have to unlearn and relearn, the relationships that I have to build, and the wounds that I must help heal. Interconnection for me is about our connection to the land and our connections with each other through meaningful and selfless relationship building. And lastly, my commitment to build a better future for the generations to come. Please remember to be kind to the land and to each other. Hope everybody has a great day and a great week. Thank you, Hannah. Pass it over to you.
Thank you, Guillermo. I'm super excited about you being here, Tia. Do you want to say hello before I read out your extensive bio?
Oh, sure. Hi, everyone. Humber College in Dina Costa. Am I saying your last name right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Tia.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm over here just saying amen to everything that you just read about standing on the shoulders of those who have come before and, being kind to not only each other, but to our land around. And that's going to be a beautiful segue into hopefully some of our conversations today. So thank you for sharing that with us.
No, thank you.
And
I
hi,
appreciate your kind words.
everybody.
um, I always think it's so funny how the artist has to sit there while you introduce them with and they don't get to speak for the first, 6 or 7 minutes. So welcome, Tia. I'm just thrilled that you're here. I've chosen just a couple highlights from your bio to introduce you, and then we're going to get right into the presentation that you have for us and an extensive Q&A. So Tia, if you don't already know, you should know that Tia is the bomb. and has played with so many wonderful people and is herself just such an incredible artist. Saxophonist, has recorded on lots of records, composer and band leader. You effortlessly bridge the divide between academia and the stage, which is a wonderful thing that I hope we get to talk about quite a bit. And you balance performance and education across such a wide spectrum of musical, genres and styles. It's wonderful. And you're only the second woman nominated for Best Jazz Instrumental Album for the Grammys. So we're going to just keep our fingers crossed for you for March 12th for your album Diamond Cut, which is phenomenal. Just love it. Let's see, what's the number 4? I have a whole list of things, and I'm just thinking, okay, how much can we put into 70 seconds? Tia, your work with pop artists is incredible. I speak with reverence about Lady Bay. What a wonderful artist, and you've shared the stage, and you've worked closely with Beyonce, and you've also worked so closely with so many incredible women artists. Nancy Wilson Orchestra, Shaka Khan. Can we all just take, I think we need 5 seconds of silence. I don't know about you, but Jill Scott, Sheila E., Patti LaBelle, Dionne Warwick, Janelle Monáe. People, can you feel it? Erykah Badu, the late Aretha Franklin, Nancy Wilson, and Jerry Allen. Honestly, we could talk for days, and I hope we get a chance to talk for a long time, but we're so glad that you're here. And if you want to just, everyone, just put your screen on and give a welcome. We're so glad to have you, Tia.
Thank you. Thank you, Hannah, for that amazing introduction. You almost brought tears to my eyes, and I don't even know why. I just feel your spirit, very sweet spirit of the college and this space. So thank you for having me. Really, thank you. If you all hear tenacious scratching, I got a new puppy, and I kind of locked him out of this purple room. There he is right there. So so I'll probably let him in later, but I apologize. So yeah, it's really my pleasure to be here, and I have a couple of things prepared for you. I'm not sure where you'd like for me to start, Hannah. I could do a truncated version of the journey to success, and then we can move into the content that you wanted to speak about. Or
yeah, you just jump in with your journey to success chat, and I hope we can get a couple of other things in there after.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'll try to be quick with this.
Okay.
Just so
Plenty of time.
Okay, so I created a PowerPoint presentation, and it's entitled Journey to Success. I don't want to be too impersonal by like putting this PowerPoint, but I'd like to just get a general gist. Would you all like to see a bit of the PowerPoint along with? Okay, cool. So I grew up in Aurora, Colorado, just to give you a little bit of backstory, and I'll restate this later. But with a family of musicians, and one of the things that my mom and my dad always focused on, as far as child rearing, was always exposing us to the arts, but also excellence and what that looks like: academic excellence, arts excellence. And one thing my mom always used to say is, it's my job to expose you to as many things as possible. And I'm so thankful for that, because I see that it's allowed for me. This is a new term I was actually just sharing with my niece and nephew, but it's allowed for me to try to remain porous and to have a perspective of porosity in my life, which has allowed for these loopholes, for lack of a better term, loopholes to really experience different things that have really aided to my overall journey. So hopefully this will bless all of you, students and faculty. And I'm just going to share my screen now. And I call it the Angelic Warrior because, can everybody see my screen? Yeah? Okay. Perfect. Let's see. Yeah. So I call it Angelic Warrior. This is actually the name of one of my former albums, my last album before Diamond Cut. And to me, I've realized that just balancing everything that we all have to balance in our life, we have to have an element of angelness or angelicness, which is having a peaceful level of discernment, prayer or meditation, to balance out that warrior energy of having a fight, a drive, perseverance, determination, and tenacity. So these are things that I've learned and I'm still learning as to how to balance so that I could really keep the crystallized vision to my life and to all of the things in my life. Okay, I usually have an MP3 with this. I guess it's not playing now, but that's okay. And this is basically what I just said. The angel, characteristics of peaceful, humble, graceful, and insightful. And then also the warrior, which is having determination, discernment, drive, tenacity, and perseverance. And essentially, as we are continue to move through our life, and hopefully our successful journey of our life, that we continue to move with decisive steps. And to me, decisive steps is having an element of faith and not fear. So I just want you all, we're going to do a little bit of self-reflection right now, because I just don't want to talk about myself, but it's important for you to really incorporate yourself into your life as to where you are right now and where you want to be. And I know we've been in this space of reflection and refinement, hopefully, during this pandemic. Hannah was sharing with me that you all have been on lockdown since November. So no restaurants, no hanging out, just kind of being at home. So if you could just take a moment, sit back and think about, okay, where is it that I want to be and how do I want to get there? And looking down this path and really thinking about, okay, with these three terms of vision, perseverance, and optimism. Essentially a crystallized sense of vision, perseverance, warrior-like perseverance, and a level of optimism. How those manifest in your life, and you're able to manifest those for yourself on your journey toward success. So we're looking down this road, and I want you to think about, okay, where do I want to be and how do I want to get there? So vision essentially is moving forward with a crystallized vision, as I said before, but also moving forward with a sense of purpose, because in vision always provides a sense of purpose in your life. And I also want you to think about what is your purpose? I truly believe that everybody is here for a reason. And I truly believe that God has placed us all here to do something specific. And I know it wasn't until about age 23 that I started to realize, for me, what my purpose was. And I realized it through those who were around me, like my friends and my family members, who always said, "Oh, Tia, you're always happy," or "Tia, you make people feel good," or whatever. And I saw that really extending throughout my life. And I was like, I'm here to be a light for others. How can I do that? Or how can I really honor that in every space, or try to honor it in every space that I'm in? Okay, so going all the way back to my childhood, this is me, I think it's 16, in the lace pink dress. Yes. That's my mom, my dad, and then my older sister, who actually is still shorter than I, but she's my older sister, and she's a great piano player, and then my younger brother, and he's about 11 years younger than I. And it was back during this time when I really started, I was dancing, but I also played the piano. And I remember being, well, my mom would always say I was mischievous. So growing up in Aurora, Colorado, I'd be getting into my mom's makeup, as you see in the picture to the left. And then That's my sister and I to the right. But it was during this time that my mom had, we had a playroom upstairs, and I remember going up there, and actually this poster is still up there, but the poster reads, "If you can imagine it, you can achieve it. If you can dream it, you can become it." This is a phrase that was imprinted and still is imprinted into my entire being. And at the age of 3, I remember seeing this poster and I was like, man, what, this is a beautiful ballerina. What does this mean? And so it wasn't until a couple of years ago when I talked to my mom and I was like, Mom, because she'd always have these phrases up on the wall. And she would say, or I asked her, Mom, what, did you know, like, were you intentional about putting these inspirational phrases? And she would say, yes, Tia, I was positively brainwashing you. And I was like, oh, okay. So this in particular, if you can imagine it, you can dream it. Or I'm sorry, you can imagine it, you can achieve it. If you can dream it, you can become it. Has been at the impetus of my life and as to what is possible. The sky is the limit. So moving on. So the second characteristic of just having a certain level of perseverance. So of course, growing up in Colorado, and being one of the only women, especially Black women, in a predominantly white environment in rural Colorado, my mom and dad, they would always infuse me with this phrase of, make sure that you go above and beyond the call of duty, Tia. And I'm like, oh, shoot, okay. But above and beyond the call of duty, what does that mean? And it's interesting because I see how now that plays out into the level of perseverance that daily that I endure, and I'm sure that many of you endure as well. So another term that my mother shared is stick-to-itiveness. Basically, and this is a term that she coined. I think she created because I don't think it's a word, but it's basically sticking to the job and getting it done until you get it done. And there were certain exercises. Well, I see now that they were exercises that my mom had us do when we were cleaning the house on the weekends. We had this big glass table with black lacquer legs. And, I would try to skimp on cleaning the table. I would just like clean the top of the table. And then she would kind of go around and inspect. And if she saw that I didn't get under the table or the legs of the table, she just wouldn't have me do that part again. She would have me do the entire table again. And to me, I realized that she always would say, Tia, it's important that when you do something, you do it right the first time with the level of excellence that you know that you can do it. And that you make sure that no matter what you put your finger on, that it is excellent and anything that you touch is gold. And so these are certain conditioning that I had growing up as a child regarding perseverance. Also a phrase, faith, not fear. Now this to me has been really transformational along my journey because I moved out to New York when I was about 26. And prior to that, this was after grad school. But prior to that, I knew I wanted to move to New York, but I was kind of nervous about moving to New York. And once I got out there, I saw that term again, the porosity, like putting yourself in an uncomfortable environment that you know that you're going to grow in, and really approaching it with an element of faith, not fear. Now, to me, those two terms are synonymous because anytime that you're moving in an uncomfortable space, faith is going to be there, but fear is also going to be there. The idea is that you don't want faith or you don't want fear to trump your faith. Fear is always going to be there, but you want the faith to supersede your fear in any crossroads that you take. So essentially moving forward in the perseverance and faith and not fear. So another quote that has been etched into my spirit, thanks to my mom, is this one. And this is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. speaking about perseverance. And I always like to insert a woman. So the ultimate measure of a man or a woman is not where he or she stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he or she stands at times of challenge and controversy. And this, I'm sure many of you can attest to. It's not what it feels like or what it looks like and where you are when things are good. It's actually, where are you when you are locked in your house for 6 months? You are not able to play live concerts with other people. You're not able to embrace people that you see. Like, where do you stand during those times of challenge and controversy? And to me, that's really the ultimate measure, as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. states, is a man or a woman in leading toward our success. So a couple of stories that I like to share. So as Hannah had gracefully mentioned, I got a chance to tour with Beyonce from 2006 to 2010. And I was a part of her all-female band. And these are pictures. This was actually, I think we were in Thailand, to this picture to the left. And it was like one of our last concerts on the first leg of our first big tour. And then this was actually, to the right is a picture of the Today Show, one of our first shows that we did on a live Today Show. And it was so cold. It was like right in the bulk of the winter, and they wanted us to wear these short skirts and heels and try to look cute and play in tune with our instruments out of tune. But one of the things that I learned from her, speaking about perseverance, is there was one show, I think we were in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I'm not sure if you all remember this, but I remember being on stage and we were playing the song Ring the Alarm, and we had our in-ear monitors, and I remember hearing this in my in-ear, and I was like, what is this? But then in my peripheral, I saw Beyonce, this image going face down forward down these 10 stairs that she usually walks down during the middle of the song. And she had this red cape that was, ankle length. And she fell straight forward down all 10 stairs. When she hit the bottom stair, she bounced up and was like, ring the alarm. I've been doing this too long. I'll be damned if I can. And we all just looked like, what? She's a machine. But to me, that was one occurrence that I learned, and there were many other stories, just seeing her jump off of planes, like 10-hour flights, and then doing a 2-hour show in heels. But this was one occurrence that I saw how perseverance looks, warrior-like perseverance looks, of being able to get up when you literally fall, you get back up. And there's also a great scripture that says a man that falls, or woman that falls 7 times gets back up. So that's my story with Beyonce. But just being a part of that amazing tour really led me to see how perseverance is seen in different aspects of our life. Lastly, optimism. And going back to my mother, towards your journey of success, I think it's really important to have a high level of optimism. And to me, this works hand in hand with being porous. And this is another phrase that was pinned up in me and my sister's bedroom. And it's the International Optimist Creed. And it states, promise yourself that you will be so strong that nothing can disturb your peace of mind. To give so much to the improvement of yourself that you have no time to criticize others. I just have to let that marinate for a second. I'm going to read it one more time. Promise yourself that you will be so strong that nothing can disturb your peace of mind. To give so much to the improvement of yourself that you have no time to criticize others. To be an optimist. So, moving forward in your journey, I just want to encourage all of you to continue to move forward in your vision, in your perseverance, and a high level of optimism to afford your successful journey. And then just a couple of phrases that I'd like to share that have helped me along my journey. And number one is never underestimate the power of a kind word. Number two is become the most positive person that you know. Learn to listen, think big thoughts, relish big pleasures. Don't expect others to listen to your advice and ignore your example. Opportunity sometimes knocks very softly. Leave everything a little better than you found it. Never waste an opportunity to tell someone that you love them. Treat everyone like you want to be treated. Make new friends, but cherish the old ones. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, so be careful what you say because there is power in your words. Smile a lot, it costs nothing and it is beyond price. Believe in yourself, love yourself, and embrace your authentic self. And this concludes this truncated version of Journey to Success. I hope that was a good icebreaker if nothing else, but just to give you some encouragement during this time, because I know I need it too, being stuck here in this purple room all day. So, are there any questions at this point, or?
I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of questions.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Do you mind if I start with a few and then we'll get into the questions in the chat?
Perfect.
It's such a pleasure to get encouraging words from you. I know it's been real tough for students and faculty. It's tough for everybody right now. And it's tough to do your coursework every day. It's tough to work on assignments and try to reimagine them through COVID times. Are you finding that to be true where you teach as well?
Oh yes, definitely. So I teach at Berklee College of Music out here in snowy Boston. It didn't snow last night, but there is ample snow on the ground. And yeah, I teach ensembles. So I direct 3 different ensembles and then artistic director of some other programs and initiatives. And what I'm finding is, especially with the ensembles, is that for the virtual learning, it's just we as faculty had to truly step outside of our comfort zone and really tap into some other, and I'm sure you all have had to do the same, but really had to tap into some other, just other techniques and to expand our skill set. If you know, one in particular for me, I didn't really know much about DAW, like Logic and, you know, Pro Tools, and now I'm learning to edit and do video editing, audio editing, but it's caused for all of us to be uncomfortable. But to me, that's a perfect space for us to really plant new seeds, fertilize these seeds, and then when it's time for the world to open back up, we will have these new skill sets ready to offer the world and ourselves. So again, trying to remain optimistic, even though it's challenging, you know, trying to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But yeah, it's been very, very challenging just being limited to the screens. This semester, we're actually, we're hybrid. So I opted to go back into the classroom. And that's really been a blessing. It's very different though. We have all of these lengthy protocols set up. But I know students are just, and I'm happy to be in a classroom, 6 feet apart, of course.
That's where it is. That's for sure. Thank you. I have like 50 questions and I don't know which one to ask.
Oh wow! I saw that. I was like, "What is that 55?"
You know, I'm writing them down. They're ordered.
Oh wow. Okay, I'm looking through the chat too.
Yeah. We've got lots of clapping and wows and woohoos and pumped up, and that's amazing. If you want to put questions in the chat, yeah, Patricio, let's just sent me a question. A really wonderful question. I'm going to read it verbatim. Patricio says, thank you very much for such inspiring words, Tia. Could you talk about the sacrifice that comes with perseverance?
Woo!
And I know, right? Just take it right there.
Right? Who asked that question?
Patricio sent me that as a direct message.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna put that in the chat. So yeah, well, take it away.
Hey, that to me is an essential question. And it was around, I'd say when I moved out to New York. New York was an eye opener for me on so many different levels. And I realized that actually it was pre-New York. It was actually when I was at Spelman College in undergrad. And I realized that in every situation you have to ask yourself, what are you willing to sacrifice? In each and every situation, even if like situation and decision in your decision making or crossroads, we always have to ask ourselves, or at least what am I willing to sacrifice? Meaning that, so when I was at Spelman, we used to have this Fashion Fridays where, so Spelman, for those of you who don't know, it's a historically Black all-girls school. It's a historically Black all-guys school right across the street, which was great for us, called Morehouse. And then there's, Clark Atlanta University. So it's a consortium of like 6 Black colleges within like 3 miles. So it was a party all the time. So on Friday, at Spelman, there was a thing called Fashion Fridays. And all of my girlfriends, we would all have on our best attire, looking cute. All the guys from Morehouse would come over. DJ would be out, sororities and fraternities, parties. The vendors would be out. And it was around 3 o'clock. I'd be hanging like from 12 to 3. And then I told my friends, I was like, hey, you guys, I gotta go. And they're like, where are you going, Tia? The party's just done. I'm like, I gotta go practice. And I've spoken to my best friend about this, but she was like, Tia, anytime we couldn't find you, we knew where you were. And to me, it was at that point where I really embraced the idea of, okay, if I stay out here, then I'm going to be sacrificing the practicing. Or if I go and practice, then I'm going to be sacrificing, hanging with my girlfriends. And I know it's not a major thing right now, or maybe it is for the college students. But to me, these incremental steps yielded to the exponential result. And this is a phrase it's not mine, but it's actually Darren Hardy, who's a great financial guru and businessman. But the incremental steps, doing something small, so sacrificing something over and over and over again over a long period of time is going to yield the exponential growth. And my niece, who's 15 years old, she actually added this part, or your decay. And I'm like, yes. So back to your initial question, Hannah, or it wasn't your question, but the question is, yes, to me, there's an element of sacrifice always in decision making. And you have to ask yourself, if I'm going to sacrifice this, then what does this mean in long term? And there's another quote that I preach to my students, and it's consistency breeds longevity. Meaning that whatever you do over a long period of time, consistently is going to breed the longevity of that result. Meaning that if you're hanging out with your girlfriends, if you guys are out, or guy friends, and you're out drinking or smoking or, not being productive all the time, over a long period of time, that's going to be the macro of your life. Whereas incrementally, if you're okay, you can hang out, but you're also balancing it with, you're going to study, you're going to practice your long tones, practice your scales, learn some tunes, go to the gym, work out, even 30 minutes on the treadmill. Incrementally, that's going to yield the long-term result. So really looking at this element of sacrifice is, yes, sacrifice is right in alignment with perseverance because it's the choice to move forward towards your big picture, your crystallized vision.
Beautiful. It's the compound interest of artistry.
Amen. Yes. Yes. Love it. Love it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to write that down.
Yeah, I'm gonna write yours down, Hannah. I'm taking notes too.
Oh my goodness, that's so great. And such a good question too. Perseverance, that one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
So strong. Yeah. Another question from Max is, when were you really focused in your journey, and did that, I mean, the specific question is, what did you achieve in this time? So and I'd like to just jump in and ask, do you have times of intense focus, or do you feel like that sustaining thing is sort of a constant?
Meaning, can you repeat the question?
The question is, when were you most focused in your journey,
okay.
and what did you achieve?
Oh, okay, that's good. That's good. Wow. So I would say I was most focused when I was in college, and I'm not just saying that because I'm talking to students. Like, you guys need to be focused right now. But you know, it was in college at Spelman, and then when I went to grad school, University of Colorado Boulder. But I remember specifically at Spelman, I was at a very remedial stage in my musicianship. To me, I was like, I was not at the level of a lot of my peers who went to like a Berklee College of Music. And I was really determined to get the tools that I needed and really seek for those tools. So I was this is another term, is being intentional, level of intentionality. So really being intentional with why you're there. I think too many times students and essentially people are waiting for something to be brought to them because they're owed something, when in actuality, it's upon us and it's our obligation to really seek something out and ask those questions. And so it was during that time that I was writing down, I had an extensive practice journal, and where we really, I don't even think we had cell phones back then. That's horrible. Or maybe they were we didn't have cell phones. So Sunday night, so again, big picture. I didn't realize I was doing this until retrospect, but I was like, okay, by the end of the month, first of all, in 5 years, I want to move to New York. Starting from the big picture, allowing for the macro to determine my micro steps. I'm using all these same terms, but the same meaning. So saying, okay, I want to move to New York. What do I need to have under my belt, or that I thought that I need to have under my belt, especially being in an institution that was not a music-oriented institution? And what I did was every Sunday I would have my practice journal and I would write out my goals for the week. So short-term goals, which attach to the long-term goal, meaning that, okay, day to day, Sundays, tomorrow, 7 a.m. I'm going to wake up, go to the gym, 8 a.m. long tones, 9 a.m. theory class, 10 a.m. major scales, 11 a.m. breakfast with the girls, 12 a.m. And I would map that all the way out my entire day, every day, until about 11 p.m. at night. And what I would do is I would check off these boxes. And so most of the time, I didn't hit 100%. Maybe I hit 80, 85%. But what that did is that allowed for me to, again, be intentional about what I wanted to accomplish. And the things that I did not hit moved over to the next day. So essentially, by the end of the week, I still had X, Y, and Z done for the most part. And then by the end of the month, I had X, Y, and Z done. And then, the big picture, the macro. So, excuse me. So yeah, I think I was most productive during that time because I remember everybody around me knew that was my life. And now all of my friends, they're like, Tia, we remember you, doing that. Now we see, where it's how it's afforded you and opened up some things for you. But it was during that time. And then also moving to New York, I think, moving to New York really taught me a lot. I was trying to maintain that level of precision, but life takes over sometimes. So I'll just leave it at that.
Well, we're burning up the chat with questions now. I I wonder if I can interject one quickly on that note, just of being so intentional about your work and your focus and meeting those goals. And it seems to me that Beyonce is one of the hardest working people I've ever seen in my life. And that's only watching videos, and that sort of intentionality of what you want to achieve and what you accomplish. Did that factor into your work and that time together?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So we, with her time, and this was, to me, God really orchestrated this so beautifully, because the time that I got the Beyonce gig, I had been in New York for 5 years. I moved to New York actually 2 days before the World Trade Center collapsed. Welcome, Tia. It was September 9th, 2001. And I actually moved to New Jersey, but it was really, really close. And so um, being out there for the 5 years and really having to hustle, having to create my own opportunities, starting my own band, being a side woman with so many people, I had kind of etched into the scope, like the scene, which I was really thankful for. But it was when I got the gig with Beyonce, and I was able to sit back, and we used to have these 10 to 12 hour production rehearsals 7 days a week before we went out to tour. And those production rehearsals would be the band, the dancers, the video crew, the lighting crew, the staging crew, the choreographers, and we would all be there on this big stage putting the show together. But once I saw her work ethic and how she really pays attention to the minutia, extremely detailed oriented with everything, from photo shoots to videos. She would always be looking, can I see the camera? Let me see that one. Okay, let me adjust this. Or lighting on the stage. She didn't like to be backlit, because she was like, you can see my flyaway hair, so just put the cameras, on my face. But all of that to say that that I learned that the perseverance and the level of work ethic that it took, as to what's sustaining her through being an artist who has the longevity. And it's not because she's beautiful. I mean, that helps, but it's not because of that, because there's a lot of women out here who are beautiful. It's because she understands what it takes to sustain her career and to have that certain level of vision, and then also perseverance and optimism. She was very open, very porous, many times. Not all the time, but many times, with the band, like, what do you guys think? Okay, maybe we can add this jazz piece. Like she scattered Ella Fitzgerald's How High the Moon, or Anthology, upon me making the recommendation, because we were trying to create an arrangement. So all of this saying is, yeah, we have to be intentional with where we want to go and diligent and, perseverant, but also having that balance, the Angelic Warrior balance of being porous and elastic. And, I don't even know if I answered the question.
Love that. Love that. I'd like to pick up a question from Savannah, who says, thank you so much, Tia. I love the message of excellence and doing your best. How do you balance this, which maybe it means success, with moments of failure or not being good at things or not feeling strong? How do you deal with the pressure of perfection?
So I see beautiful Savannah right here. Savannah, I'm just curious. Can you elaborate on that question? I'd like to connect, and I see your face right here.
I guess personally, like, I'm very jealous that you were given this message of, like, you can do this. And I think I had an opposite thing of being a little more like maybe coddled and told I was special without trying or whatever. So I'm wondering how you've, like, obviously developed this work ethic, and it's allowed you to succeed and do these very good things. But ultimately, there's no, like, life without failures and challenges and moments of weakness. So how do you, in those moments where you don't feel strong or you don't feel capable, how do you like, remember what your mom told you about everything you touch needs to be gold and not feel conflicted?
Yeah. So first of all, we're human. So we're going to feel those feelings. And I know for me to acknowledge those feelings and to embrace them is number one. To understand that it's okay to feel like that is number one. but not to get hung up on it. So making sure that, okay, feel, cry, do those things, break down in the bed at night when you're sad or somebody's hurt your feelings, or you're frustrated with yourself, but then the next morning get up and do it again and try again. And there's a couple of quotes that I keep in my back pocket, and they're all scriptural for those of you who read the Bible. But one of them's and of course I just went blank. Okay, one of them is faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things unseen. Another one is, I am the light and not the darkness. I am the head and not the tail. And another one is, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. And so all of these affirmations, essentially, that I have in my back pocket when I've been in situations where I'm uncomfortable, just having those in my back pocket, and again, kind of brainwashing yourself and saying, hey, you can do this. And you know what else I'm realizing, Savannah, is that sometimes showing up is half the battle, is actually more than half the battle. Just being there, being present is all you need to do when it feels like you can't even get out of bed in the morning. The tail end of 2020, and to be completely transparent, because the tail end of 2020 was really rough for me. On top of this pandemic, I ended up getting COVID. I ended a 3-year relationship with my boyfriend, who I found out was cheating. And my mom and dad, I had some issues with my brother, and so all of these things culminated, and I went under. But I still had to show up for like Zoom meetings for my students. I'm sitting there looking crazy, like, y'all, I don't know I ain't got anything for you today, but I'm here. So but what I'm saying is showing up is half the battle. So make sure, just continue to show up. And then lastly, I want to say to make sure that you have your circle of friends who are there and who are going to lift you up during those times. The people who really know like the core of who you are. And I have a handful of girlfriends, like my college friends, that are really, they're right there. My girlfriend, she was actually the one who sent me a ticket, an airline ticket to Atlanta when all of this stuff was going on, just to kind of escape. So just have your close friends, guys, girls, whoever you can trust, who could kind of lift you up. But many times they're not there, so you got to be able to do it yourself. But the acknowledgement of it being hard, go ahead and acknowledge it and go through what you need to go through in your private space, and then come on out looking like a queen. Like what? And fake it until you make it, honey. Like what? I'm doing this, and then crawl back into your hole when you get home.
That is it. Can we switch it over since the warrior spirit has come out now? I wonder if we can, it was always there, but we seem to be moving into some questions about warrior spirit, which I love. I'd love to turn to just reference the article that you wrote for NBC News. So phenomenal. We'll put it in the chat so people can have a read. But I would love to talk about this one experience that you referenced. You said, when I moved to New York in 2001, I remember going to a jam session where a long line of musicians was waiting to get up on stage. When it was my turn, a male horn player behind me almost immediately cut me off. I looked around and noticed that once again, I was the only woman in the room. That was the last time. Let's just repeat that. That was the last time I let a man play over me like that ever again. Emphasis mine, but I can see the emphasis yours. So one of the questions that came to me privately was just about being a woman in this industry, having this experience of being sexualized by other people, putting you know, and you talk quite frankly about getting hit on and when you went to get gigs, and this is all part and parcel. And I wonder if you want to talk a little bit about the warrior spirit that said that you'll never let a man play over you like that ever again.
Yeah. Yeah. So coming from Colorado, I was extremely green. And I remember when I visited New York, people are like, "Oh, you're not from here." Just like random people on the street. Because I was walking down the street, smile, you know. And so it wasn't until when I moved out there that I realized that not necessarily did I have to change, but I just had to have another part of my character of protection. And that's kind of situations like that help to mold um, my perspective. And that was like the first couple of months that I was in New York when I did that. And it was the first and the last time that happened, because I realized, I was like, oh, okay, this is what this is. This is like the fight or flight reality out here. And this is why people say, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. Because of that mentality, it's kind of a cutthroat mentality. And I just think having that perspective, I knew that I didn't want to change my core character of like just walking around, you know, being mean all the time. But this is something else, like I was saying before, that I really had to exercise. And you know, being out there talking to different musicians, of course, as a woman, we always have to be more conscious of how we are showing up, which is unfortunate, because this is a whole masterclass. This question is like one masterclass, because what happens is many times we carry this burden onto the stage, and we just can't show up purely for the music. We have to show up in defense mechanism. It's funny, Esperanza Spalding was talking about this. You have to have on this protective shield of armor in order to just play, because that's how we've had to appropriate ourselves in this westernized, patriarchal, male-dominated environment. So maybe that was a little much, and I'm not even sure where to go from there. But yeah, these are all things that I've had to think about. Like I used to wear, I mean, one of my friends who was a mentor of mine, and mind you, I was in my early 20s. He was like, Tia, maybe you need to try to put on, you know, wear clothes and blend in with the guys. And so when I first moved out to New York, I was wearing like slacks and button-down shirts with a suit jacket. And I've always been a girly girl, like, you know, like the frilly stuff. But I tried to downplay it a little when I first moved out, because I was trying to blend in. But what does that mean? Blending, like, what is that? I'm never going to blend in. I'm a woman, and I should really embrace that. And I think being on tour with Beyonce really allowed for me to come out of that experience back into the jazz world and embrace being a woman and being a strong woman and being okay with it, being unapologetic about it. So yeah, it's a bunch of balancing acts that we're not only balancing with other people, but we're also balancing within ourselves, which is unfair. But it's a part of it. Until we can see more of an equitable performing arts environment, an equitable society that is more inclusive, and until we can see all of those elements, more of an equal playing field, we're constantly going to have to deal with both sides of the imbalance. That's my macro, if you want to dig in deeper to that, but that's my macro response.
Absolutely. We could have a whole talk. It's a whole scene to talk about equity and in gender equity in the music industry. But you've played with incredible women. I mean, you are incredible, and you've played with incredible women, and it still feels unique. And I wonder I wonder if you could chat just a little bit. I mean, I just want to bring up from your bio, I mean, you've played on the Mosaic Project, you've played on Terry Carrington's Money Jungle, which great album, Provocative in Blue, assistant MD for Esperanza Spalding's Radio Music Society tour, Diane Reeves' Beautiful Life album. What a great, these are all phenomenal projects. And then when we talk about Jill Scott, I mean, we could talk all day about playing with Jill Scott or Sheila E. or Janelle Monáe. So I wonder if you could, while we're just on the subject of gender justice, if you could talk about playing with so many strong women.
Yeah. I'm so thankful for, first off, Terry Lynn Carrington. She produced my last album, Diamond Cut, and she's just an extraordinary being. I'm actually going to be recording with her on Friday, which is cool because I haven't seen her in a while, and that's my girl. But, you know, playing with these strong women and these strong women of color, to me, for me, has been really transformational in so many ways. Of course, as I had spoken about before, my mom and my grandmother and all of the matriarchs in my family have always been strong women who have really bent over backwards for the family and sacrifice, like all of these things that we've talked about, you know? And so I'm seeing this correlation with Diane Reeves, being on tour with her and how she shows up every day just in her regal manner, you know? Terry Lynn Carrington, she to me has showed me so many things about not only being a musician, like playing in a certain way, accessing another side of my playing. Because before I used to really bear down a lot and just kind of go in, because that's what my dad would always tell me to do. But she was like, you got to access this other part of your, you know, the flurries and think a little bit lighter. And but alongside of that, just the way that she's navigated through both worlds of the pop industry, R&B industry, jazz industry, playing with David Sanborn, being on Arsenio Hall show as the drummer there, playing with Wayne Shorter, Esperanza Spalding, and then seeing how she also moves through being a producer, a musician, an educator, and a businesswoman. She's her own manager. She's, you know, her own, for the most part. She does everything herself. And I don't know how she does it, but she really, I look to her for a lot of, whenever, like Savannah, back to your question, whenever I'm feeling tired, I think about these strong women who have come before, and I'm like, oh no, Tia, you ain't tired. You get your butt back up and just do it again and figure it out, because they've been doing it. You're standing on the shoulders of them, and you have no choice. So yeah, all of that to me has been really empowering. And you know, even on the musical level, if we're speaking about women, the essence of playing with women versus men, and I'm going to take a step out here, but I've always equated it to the biological makeup, like the biological organs that are innately a part of us, right? So women essentially, to me, when we play together, and this is a generalization, it's not a matter of fact, but to me, from my experience, playing with women, or majority of women, there's more of an elastic element of the music. It's like, it's moving, almost like the womb, the uterus, that is able to, you know, give birth and give life. Whereas sometimes playing with generally men is a little bit more, for lack of a better term, straightforward, you know? You know, just like boom, boom, ding, 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 ding. And I actually tested this. I was on tour. It was with Terry Lynn and I think Diane. And then I jumped off the tour and I went to play a gig with Warren Wolf, Sean Jones, I think it was Carl Allen, Christian McBride. And just the placement of the beat is completely different, generally. Now, they all have the ability to do this as men, and we as women have the ability to do this. But again, I think it's important that we know where our intuitive space lies as musicians and just who we are, and to be aware of that. And I know musically, I'm usually playing like right behind the beat, which allows for more of this. Like I just did this side-by-side video with Warren Wolf. You all could go to his IG, and we played This I Dig of You. And he sent me the track. He was like, Tia, make sure you play in time. He was like, you be playing behind me. Make sure you play right there with the click. I was like, okay, Warren. And I had to do like 5 takes of it because I was behind the beat. That was Big Shot. So all that to say is I'm honoring both sides of the spectrum, and I'm trying to become more aware of it. And not to say one's bad, one's better than the other, but just to honor that and how our innate biological makeup becomes a part of that generally.
Thanks for that. I think now's a good time for us to just chat about racial justice, about gender justice, and one of the things that Humber is doing, our journey is set on we're on a 5-year strategic plan that we're implementing right now, and to bring equity into the program and to kind of address, but to actually address ways in which people have been disadvantaged in our program, obstacles that have been put up in our program for women, 2S LGBTQ folk, and racialized people in our program. So we've been working with a lot of partners, and one of our community partners is the POC alumni group, and they have put together a video question that we'd like to show and that you can respond to. So Ryan, would you run that for us, please?
Hello, we are the Humber Music POC Alumni Collective, a group of musicians comprised of queer, Black, and women of color.
We assembled in June of 2020, galvanized by the lack of response from jazz institutions across Canada in reaction to the murder of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement.
We have been consulting with Humber College to support the deconstruction of racism within institutionalized Black art, advocating for transparency and inclusion in hopes of creating safer spaces for Black, Indigenous, people of color in the Humber community.
Based on the growing awareness of the ways that institutions have created barriers in the form of racial and gender injustice, what changes would you like to see in the music industry? And are there ways that institutions in which you are involved advocate for social justice?
And Tia, I'm just going to invite the women to join me on the camera so that,
okay. Beautiful.
Okay?
Yeah.
Then you can respond.
Okay, great. And if it's okay, Hannah, as you're bringing them on, in response to that, I'd like to preface it. If I could play a little bit of this video. So I want to share with everybody that for the first time, I actually I spoke on this subject of the BIPOC community with equity, inclusivity in music education. And if it's okay with you all, I'd just like to share with you a little bit of this presentation to start off, and then we could have more of an interactive. And the reason why, to me, in order for us to really address sexism, we can't address sexism without addressing racism. Because essentially, it's coming from the same place, which is bias, implicit bias. So I'll preface it with that. Are the ladies on? Hi, Kyla. Hi, you're beautiful, Kyla. And wait, I only see Kyla though, because I saw her waving her hand. But I'm sure the other ladies are here. Okay.
Claire's on. Just
oh, hi, Claire. You're beautiful too. Okay, hi, Claire. You're on my first page. And who is?
And waiting for. I don't know if Lydia's going to come on, but Megan's not able to come on. So go ahead.
Okay.
And yeah.
Cool. Thank you for asking this question. This is like bringing us in a deeper and steeper direction that we really need to have these seemingly uncomfortable conversations about at times. And so I'm prefacing it with that because when I think about, when I think about the term racism, one of my professors and spiritual gurus back at Clark Atlanta University, his name is Dr. Daniel Black, and he actually defines racism as the use of a person's physical appearance to determine their quality of life. And the question is, how many times have we done this ourselves, And I've really had to reflect upon it myself. Like, how many times have I automatically assume something because of the way that someone looks? And then how does it show up in our institutions, in our communities? How many times have we prejudged a student who enters the room wearing baggy jeans, for the faculty out there, or other students, and a baseball cap for an audition, assuming that they can't play? How many times have we looked at a Black girl with a saxophone from the hood, assuming she's not going to sound good? How many times are we determining this quality of life based off of the appearance? So I'm going to share my screen, and give me just 1 second. These are all things that I think, especially during this time of, in light of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Emmett Till, like all of these young Black men and the positioning in this westernized society, really looking at the element of racism and the systemic racism within the BIPOC community. So with that, is it okay if I take about 5 to 7 minutes with everybody? Okay. This has all been an extension of systemic racism, and it undoubtedly manifests itself in its extended community. But we would be remiss not to look at the stance of the BIPOC community in music education without first looking at the root cause from its historical context. Now, I do want to define, I realize I was remiss in not defining BIPOC, and that's Black, Indigenous, people of color. So I'll just read, and I'll say that last line again. But we would be remiss to look at the stance of the BIPOC community in music education without first looking at the root cause from a historical context. In Robin DiAngelo's book, now brace yourselves, because some of you might feel a little bit uncomfortable, but this is why I'm here. In Robin DiAngelo's book, White Fragility, she states, the United States was founded upon the principle that all people are created equal. Now, mind you, Robin DiAngelo, she is a white woman who is an activist. Yet, the nation began with the attempted genocide of indigenous people and the theft of their land. American wealth was built on the labor of kidnapped and enslaved Africans and their descendants, end quote. In other words, we were all taught in our academic rearing that Christopher Columbus discovered America. But he didn't. And I don't remember any mentioning about how he committed genocide to an entire race of individuals, which was then followed by a middle passage of Africans being unrightfully taken from their land to serve as slaves on the American soil. The foundation of this big fire has perpetuated the forms of stereotypes, racist acts, and this general white supremacist mentality in America. Now, just a sidebar. And as I said many times, when the term white supremacist is used, many white people get uncomfortable, which is okay, but actually it's not. And unfortunately, they become dismissive or offended. As a Caucasian woman, activist, and author, Robin DiAngelo's book, White Fragility, she boldly challenges white America in also stating, I believe that white progressives cause the most daily damage to people of color. I define a white progressive as any white person who thinks he or she is not a racist, or is less racist, or already gets it. She further states, White progressives can be the most difficult for people of color because, to a degree, we are thinking that we have arrived. We will put our energy into making sure that others see us as arrived. None of our energy will go into what we need to be doing for the rest of our lives in ongoing self-awareness, continuing education, relationship building, and actual anti-racist practice. White progressives do indeed uphold and perpetrate racism, but our defensiveness and certitude make it virtually impossible to explain to us how we do so. End quote. Essentially, looking at the privilege of it all. So in light of that, for us to address the equity, equality, and inclusivity amongst the BIPOC community in music education, we must, 1, individually recognize our own personal bias. 2, change the infrastructure. 3, be clear with your responsibility to individually and collectively mitigate this problem. To the first point, all of us are biased. All of us are biased. Let me just say that one more time. All of us are biased. We grew up in a biased society and in a biased community. And if you don't think that you're biased, I'm looking at all of you, you are perpetuating the problem. I just want you to take a moment and think of all the social innuendos insinuating the term Black. And once again, I'd like to give credit to Dr. Daniel Black, who teaches at Clark Atlanta University and author of Perfect Peace and many, many other amazing books. But this is something that I got from one of his talks today, and it was really powerful. And that is, all of the social innuendos insinuating that the term is Black is quote unquote negative. Now let's just think about some terms that we see and that he revealed today in his discussion. Think about, okay, what about the black market? The black market, the definition of that is illegal traffic or trade, illegal, versus the white market. The white market means legal or official. Okay, another term, black cat. When we hear that term black cat, what does that mean? Well, in Webster's dictionary, it says as a symbol, it actually symbolizes bad luck. Okay, going a little deeper here, black cake. And I hadn't thought about this one. But black cake is actually a code word for devil's food cake versus angel's food cake, which is white. So to dig a little bit deeper, and I am an avid pool player. I grew up with a pool table in the basement, hitting all of these balls. The white ball is dominating the table, boom. And at the very end, in order for you to win the game, what ball has to fall? The black ball. The white ball is dominating the black ball. Lastly, if we think about, a room being dark, it's black, insinuating scary, maybe eerie, evil. So with all of these, we have been programmed to think that anything of the darker hue is bad and has a negative connotation. We have to be overly conscious to address our implicit bias that surface subconsciously due to socialization in the classroom and beyond. The notation to automatically think that this black child can't read music, but has a good ear, is disregarding the cultural compass. Instead of seeing it as a deficiency, we need to work to see that as an advantage point and build upon it at that point. Excuse me. The second point, change the infrastructure to reflect that the BIPOC community and beyond. Meaning that if we want equity within a certain culture of people, they have to be seen at the root of its inception and everywhere in between. Excuse me. Meaning within any institution, BIPOC needs to be present, not only in the classrooms, but to be within every tier of education, every tier of educational advancement. This includes the tier of upper administration, such as president, the president's staff, the vice president's staff, executive staff, administrative staff, board of trustees, academic affairs, and on and on and on. The areas where decisions are being made, curriculums are being formed, distribution of money, scholarships, and grants are all being discussed for the upward mobility of BIPOC. And it is not enough to just have one person in there. How many times have we seen that? But equal representation across the board. And number 3, for us to be clear with the responsibility to collectively and resourcefully mitigate the problem. There is always more power in community. Once the individual bias is acknowledged and the infrastructure is balanced, communal efforts can be made to create resources, tools, and basically address the non-biased assessments. Resources are needed to make disenfranchised communities have the same quality of instruments and cultivate arts-based programs. It is imperative that these resources are reflective of the same that are found in the affluent white communities, affording Black communities the ability to be equally competitive and equipped for success with an arts-based education. The resources, making sure that we have the resources in our communities. Furthermore, it is important for there to be ample opportunity for grant and scholarship in underserved communities. So for the past 8 years, okay, I'll stop there. And yeah, I mean, are there any questions regarding that? I move into something else at the tail end of the presentation, but I think looking at that, like our state of racism and how these implicit bias exists, is only going to help us not only through racism, but also looking at sexism and how we have implicit bias toward that. And acknowledging that, once again, as I stated before, we live in an extremely patriarchal, westernized society. So anything, outside of that is going to be a little bit of a push-pull, especially if it's not an embedded systemic space that's residing within this culture.
So Tia, I just put the question directly from the POC alum group into your chat, so okay. you can address their question. Great. And I think we have Kyla, Lydia, and Claire on video right now.
Okay. Hello, ladies. Okay, based on the growing awareness of the ways that institutions have created barriers in the form of racial and gender injustice, what change would you like to see in the music industry? So yeah, with that, I think in the music industry, it's important. So in order to, of course, create these more balanced playing fields, there has to be an imbalance because it's already an imbalance. So we have to go the other side to create this, the equality, right? Or the balance. And ironically enough, Terry Lynn Carrington actually started Institute of Jazz and Gender Justice at Berkeley. And it's an institution. The slogan is Jazz Without Patriarchy. What does jazz look like without patriarchy, which is, to me, it's kind of hip because it's like, whoa, it's like putting it right in your face. Like, what? Yeah, that's what it is. And that's what we're talking about. And so I think in the way that it shows up, or the way that I would like to see it changed in the music industry, is creating more opportunities for marginalized groups, groups that have been marginalized, women, women, men, gay women, like, what is the term that I'm looking for? It'll come to me. But, and what I'm seeing now, and I think it could be a something like a healing space for the community, is that we are more intentional, especially as the gatekeepers for everyone who performs, such as booking agents, managers, seeing more of a presence of this community in those areas, and then also having these festivals. And a couple of festivals have done this. One in particular was Monterey Jazz Festival, and then another one was Atlanta Jazz Festival. But these festival presenters are saying, we want to make sure that there's 50-50 representation of men and women in these, men and women leaders at these festivals, and really being intentional about hiring women to show up as leaders so that we can counter this injustice. Okay, the second part of the question, are there ways that institutions in which you are involved advocate for social justice? Yes, Berkeley is being extremely intentional about that. It's like on every tier. So essentially, there are certain positions open where they put out searches, and they've been very diligent with making sure that the people who are applying are reflective of the world, culturally, gender, gay women, gay men, straight men, just a full combination of everyone. And then, as I was saying in the video, that you're seeing these representations in all tiers of the institution. So throughout the administration, down to the faculty. And one thing that I'm appreciative is, in the ensemble department, that's the department that I work in at Berkeley, I think we're the most diverse department at Berkeley, because the chairs have been extremely intentional, really seeking for that equilibrium. And we just got to be more intentional, and we have to speak out more towards it with wherever we are. And I know a lot of students have also, provided some voice in this area as well. I actually started a Talk to Tia series on, what I call a Talk to Tia series on Instagram, and it's every other Wednesday. But right now I'm featuring students, postgraduate students of Berkeley, just to hear about their tenure at Berkeley and then how they felt that they were poised. But I'm focusing this month for Black History Month on a couple of my Black students, but how they were poised or not poised to be successful in what they want to do. Did that answer your question, ladies? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Tia. We're so honored. I'm in my pajamas. I did not expect this to happen. We're so honored. Thank you so much. And thank you, Hannah. Thank you.
Thank you for the great question, and just continue great work. I'd love to come back if need be and speak with you all if you all have another opportunity, to speak more in depth about this, because I think it's really important. And we do have to continue to have these very vocal conversations throughout our communities.
That's wonderful. I'm so pleased. Tia, we've kept you on here for a good long time, and I know we'll have to wrap it up soon, but
that's okay. We have to out, right?
Yeah, we can do a little bit more. We've been talking a little bit. You mentioned a little bit about your work at Berkeley, but two questions that I would love to discuss is the course or the talk that you give on women in jazz. It's kind of a revisionist history of jazz, and I'd love to talk about that. And then the second thing I wonder if we can spend some time on is the part of the course that you're teaching, which is going across the college to collaborate with other departments about how you put together shows, and that sort of entertaining aspect of it. So if maybe we can start first with the Women in Jazz chat. I saw a recent interview where you're talking about, you're just bringing to the fore important women like Hazel Scott, Mary Lou Williams, and so many other, and there's so many great women historians, you know, especially queer women historians in jazz. So maybe we can chat a bit about that.
So I'm sorry. What did you want me to?
Yeah, I know.
I'm sorry.
It's the fatal flaw. Just try to get it all in too much.
It's okay. No, I want to thank you, because the term non-binary was the term I was searching for. I was like, what is it? But thank you. This is perfect.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about your course with the revisionist jazz history, and including women that have been overlooked in the past 125 years or so of jazz.
Yeah. So yeah, I actually have a PowerPoint presentation of that as well. But it's a summation of women instrumentalists, and I mean, I'm happy to share a portion, but I could just talk about it. Like, people such as ladies who have really served as the birthright and the building blocks of jazz in particular, that have been written out of his story. And so, unfortunately, we have to find these books such as Sarah Plaxton's Woman in Jazz, and, you know, these other great documentaries that are out. But unfortunately, when we think about the archetype of what does a jazz musician look like, it doesn't look like me. It looks, and so how can we redefine that? But to me, you know, I'm always trying to root cause, and I'm looking back at, okay, who was at the impetus of this music? And we have Clora Bryant, who's a great trumpet player. Would you all like to see a little bit of the presentation? I could call it up. No, yeah. Do we, or Hannah, I'll let you.
Sure. I mean, I wonder if maybe you can just hit some highlights, and we can, and I'll put them in the chat so people can research it in some time, and we can, if you call out the resources, I'll write them in, because
perfect.
I see still like a bunch of questions in
yeah, and I won't be so lengthy. I'm sorry, but so Cora Bryant is one. Ernestine Tiny Davis, who's another trumpet player. She was the leader of, she's the lead trumpet player in the International Sweethearts of Rhythm, which is, if you know anything about women in jazz, that was one of the token groups during the 40s, during the big band era. They were the most successful all women's group out, and they sold out the Howard Theater with like 36,000 patrons in one weekend, which is like a lot today.
And they're touring out of World War II, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's right. And it was comprised of young girls from a middle school. I think it's Piney Woods Middle School, from ages 14 to 17. So they were babies doing it. And then also Viola Burnside, y'all. Woo! You have to check her out. I mean, I'd be happy to come back and just do the Women in Jazz presentation, but this specific song that she's playing called it's escaping me now, but she sounds just like a Coleman Hawkins type. And then Vi Red is another alto saxophonist and singer. She toured with Count Basie in London. She was, you know, the only woman in the group, but she not only sung, but she played the mess out of the alto. And a lot of people equated her sound with Charlie Parker. There's Ernestine Young, I believe it's Lester Young's sister, who sounded just like Prez, but on the alto. And then Mary Lou Williams. Mary Lou Williams, actually, hopefully you all know that name, but if you don't, she's been one of the most prolific women who, to me, I parallel her with Miles Davis, because she's been proficient in gospel, stride piano, swing, bebop, funk, like all of these different genres, moving with the time. She was proficient. Not only that, she taught Dizzy Gillespie, Bud Powell, and Thelonious Monk. They would go to her house after sessions in New York, and they would study with her. So it keeps going on and on. Those are just a couple, like, from a historical background, but it goes on and on. So yeah, I think I just
also, isn't it? I put also Black Christ of the Andes in because Mary's compositions were.
Oh yeah.
Mary Williams' compositions are beautiful, and her choral work, her
Yes.
writing for singers is incredible.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
there's also, I mean, we don't have all the time, but also the women behind the bands who took the gig, hired the people, you know, took care of all of the touring details, you know, all of those managers that without whom their partners, often their husbands, wouldn't have been able to be as great as they were, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Lil Hardin Armstrong. That's one that because she was back in the 30s, I believe.
Yeah.
But Lil Hardin Armstrong was Louis Armstrong's wife, and she was noted for pioneering his career. If it wasn't for him, he probably wouldn't have been an individual artist because he was kind of comfortable behind the scenes and just kind of playing. But she pioneered specifically, and not only, but the Hot 5 and Hot 7 recordings. She did all of those arrangements for Louis Armstrong. And it's funny because I remember reading, and I'm paraphrasing, but I remember reading this article, and they ended up, unfortunately, getting a divorce, or maybe fortunately, I don't know. But she said, when I realized that Louis Armstrong was climbing the ladder that I was holding, it was time for me to chuck the deuces. She didn't say chuck the deuces, that's just me, but, you know, it was time for me to, so all of, I mean, it keeps going. We look at Coltrane and Alice Coltrane, and you know, Coltrane, when he wrote Love Supreme, he was up in his room for so many weeks, I think 2 or 3 weeks, and she was there attending. So
yeah, there's a lot of history yet to be written, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And also I think of a legacy building too. How many people continued the work of legacy building after the artists that we're so familiar with had passed, right?
That's right. Jerry Allen was one of them. Unfortunately, she passed away. She's a great pianist, great compositions. She was an extraordinary educator. We lost her 3 years ago.
Yes.
And I got the sweetest soul ever. She, Terry Lynn, and Esperanza had a group called ACS, and for Allen, Carrington, and Spalding. And but she was the director of jazz studies in Pittsburgh, I think. But yeah, she's one of them.
Ethnomusicologist.
I'm sorry.
And Jerry Allen was an ethnomusicologist.
Yeah.
So shout out to higher education.
That's right. That's right.
Go get those degrees. Yeah, that's awesome. And then, so there's lots of, we put lots of info in the chat if you want to look into that. And I know and Humber, we're going through our own curriculum processes right now. So hopefully if these names aren't familiar to you yet, they will become familiar to you soon.
Yeah.
And again, I'll just shout out that people can send me an email and we can continue these conversations, which we will. One of the really interesting cross collaboration programs that you mentioned in your bio is so interesting. You talk quite a bit about entertainment and how to be an entertainer and what things you learn from playing pop music. I noticed in some of your interviews. So it's really amazing that you're bringing that insight and knowledge to your students at Berklee. Could you talk a bit about this, these cross collaboration ensembles with other departments?
Yeah. So upon getting the gig at Berklee, I've been teaching there since 2013. I remember the first time I walked on campus, I was looking around. I was like, this kind of, I don't know if you all remember, I might be dating myself, but you remember that show Fame? It was like the performing arts high school. So it felt like that. But at the time, it was absent of the dance component and the theater component. So when I first walked on campus, I was like, because I thought there was going to be music everywhere, like on the streets, in front of coffee shops, you know. And even though the music is happening, it wasn't as relevant. I mean, not as relevant, but it just wasn't as visible. And they were in classes, and I was like, man, I'd really like to not only expand the idea of students playing outside of the walls of Berklee, but create an opportunity to cross collaborate throughout the college and incorporate, basically to reenact the Beyonce tour, or reenact like a Bruno Mars tour. So I started these ensembles. The first one was the Beyonce. I could actually play a little bit of this. The Beyonce Ensemble, Bruno Mars Ensemble. We did Ariana Grande Ensemble last year, and we've incorporated BOCO, which is Boston Conservatory, with dancers, choreographers, lighting crew, stage set, LED lights, a musical director who are doing all the tracks and everything. And this was a dream of mine, and thank God I've been able to do it, because not only has it served me, because it's really provide more of my purpose there to really cross collaborate, but the students love it. And so now my current ensemble is a Rihanna Ensemble, and because we're in this virtual world, we're not able to do a big live show, but what we're doing is putting together a 3-part Berklee video that's going to be, for lack of a better term, kind of pimped out, to where it's going to have like, we're going to do videos, and they have a costume designer, and these are all students initiating all of this. I'm pretty much the overseer, and I'll tweak and I'll polish. I'll do the macro, tweak them, but the musical engineer, he's one of my students. He's a great drummer, pianist. He wrote all of the arrangements. And if I may, can I just share a little portion of...
Yeah, please. Please.
Yeah, this is just Bruno Mars Berklee Ensemble. Let me see. Okay. I didn't really prep this because I didn't know we were going to be talking about this, but let me see if I can... I don't know what clip this is. Okay. Oh no. Oh, here it is.
Girls, come let's get information. Say my name, you know who I am. Say my name, you know who I am. I'm too hot. Hot take, hot take, hot take.
What? That's crazy.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. The first one we did was the Beyonce Ensemble, and what happened is I brought in 7 girls of Beyonce's band, and then the Beyonce Ensemble from Berklee. So
These tears that fall from my eyes are not.
We had about 30 people on that stage. It was original band members, Berklee's band, and then Ebony, who was one of Beyonce's dancers, she came and choreographed all the dancers. So it was really extraordinary, and it's set the institution on a trajectory of really aligning students with their big picture on every level, because it's not just the performers, but I have my marketing team who are all students. They're part of the business. I have my promo team. I have the videographers. I have the choreographers, the wardrobe team, stage crew. So it's been really extraordinary.
It sounds extraordinary. Oh my goodness. And it's so, it reminds me that so many amazing people who play pop in the big shows and whatever are rooted in jazz. So many have that, the sensibility that comes from education, like what we're both delivering at Humber and at Berklee, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry.
No,
I was just gonna say that.
Finish, yeah.
Oh no, I was just gonna say it's definitely the root of the music, all the music out here. And I mean, even with the movies like Playing in Soul, and seeing how just seeing how jazz has always been tucked in to our culture, and it's always present, but many people don't identify with it because it's not the popular music anymore. But now, having an animated movie on Pixar that's depicting a jazz musician, and then talk about inclusivity and equity, and one of the lead characters is a Black woman who plays the saxophone. So to me, that's just, we are making strides, to me, as a culture. And even though this is another conversation, but a lot of musicians, jazz musicians sometimes they kind of wear me out, to be perfectly honest, because everybody has their own opinion and something to say, and it's not this and it's not that. And I've seen a couple of things, and I'm like, come on, y'all. But look at the macro, like, look at the big picture. We are making strides. It's not going to be perfect, but we're hearing the music. Your children are looking at Pixar, Disney Plus, and seeing and hearing this music in real time. Real instrument.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about soul for a minute. I mean, my children are watching soul, and you have young, my son is 12. He's like, I don't like jazz. And then his ringtone is Giant Steps, and he's like walking through,
Nice.
So it's in a certain sense, some of it is the chatter, right? It's, versus the actual music and the playing and the self-exploration. Kelsey, I saw you on the chat there. You talk about this all the time with your students about how our journey is one of exploration and into ourselves, I know. Kelsey, where are you? Can you just give a little wave? Because you've taught me so much about that.
Kelsey, do you teach or are you a student?
Wow.
It looks so fresh. You could be a student.
Okay.
I don't know if I want to answer that.
Okay.
I'm on faculty here.
Okay. Nice to meet you. Well, hopefully it was a compliment. You took it as a compliment.
Wonderful hearing you speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelsey.
Yeah, so I love that. Why don't we talk about soul for a minute before we end? I mean, it's so incredible, but I'd love to hear your opinion on it. So why don't you just go?
Yeah. Well, to me, soul. So it was really great to be a part of, to record and serve that role for Dorothea's musical voice. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's Dorothea is like, actually, you know what? Let me just play a little bit of this video. It'll preface it. And I will say that I had no idea that the microphones were on when they were playing. I thought they were testing levels. And it wasn't until this came out on a trailer online that I realized, I was like, when did I play that? And I was like, oh, shoot, that's when they were testing the mic. So for the students out there, you never know who's listening. You never know when the microphone's on. And of course, I'm like, man, I could have played some way better hip stuff than that. But this is what it is. So this is just a portion of the video. And then we could talk more about this process for our last little bit.
There he is. Hey, Curly. Leon skipping town really put us in a bind, man. Yeah, I'll
Can you all hear it? Sorta. Okay, I'll try to turn it up.
bet. Glad you made it. My boy Bishop said he sat in with you on a set last year in Brooklyn. Said you were great. Well, you know, for a coffee shop. Hey, Dorothea, this is the cat I was telling you about. My old middle school band teacher, Mr. Gardner. Call me Joe, Dorothea. Miss Williams. It's a pleasure. Wow, this is amazing. Joe is Ray Gardner's son.
So, we're down to middle school band teachers now.
Okay. So talk about New York and the vibe, like that vibe of like, what we used to call, I'm gonna vibe you. Like, that's Dorothea's character. And the way that I got the gig, I got a phone call from a booking agent, Randall Kennedy, with Ted Curlin Agency, and they said that they were looking for a Black woman to play the musical role of Dorothea, who's basically she's supposed to be a badass saxophonist in New York. And then I was like, heck yeah, I want to do that. So he gave me the number to Tom McDougall, who's like the musical director, executive director. Had a conversation with him, and then he told me who was on it. And he was like, yeah, well, if you're able to do it, we'd love to have you. And John Baptiste is playing piano. Linda Oates playing bass. Marcus Gilmore is playing drums. And then also Roy Haynes. I was like, Roy Haynes! For those of you who don't know Roy Haynes, he's like a legendary drummer who played with John Coltrane. And, he's like 90 years old. So was able to make the date. Move some stuff around, but got to LA, and literally John didn't send any music because he was the musical director. So we were there the first day, and we were just setting up our booths, and then I introduced myself to everybody, and then John had talked over a couple of tunes, like standards, Trinkle Tinkle and some other tunes, and I was like, okay, that's cool. Oh, I don't know that one, but I'll check it out. So then went back to the hotel, and then the next morning we come in, and that's when he gives us the music, the day of the recording. Sight reading! So with that, a couple of things. So when I was setting up in my isolation booth, and the videographer came in, and there were 3 cameras. There was one on my face, one on my body, and then one on my fingers. And I was like, oh, you're going to be recording my fingers? He was like, yeah, every single note that you play is going to be played by Dorothea, the exact note. I was like, are you serious? So talk about being impeccable in the minutia and detail. That's why Pixar is amazing as they are. On top of that, the character, this is for everybody. So you see John Baptiste, you see Joe Gardner, the character, who's playing piano, but those are all of the same voicings that John Baptiste, and so the character that they had initially, she was a Black woman, but basically they changed the image to kind of mimic my image a little. I had shorter hair that was up to here, and even my best friend, she saw the movie and she was like, Tia, that even looks like you adjusting. You do that. You adjust your mouthpiece like that. They got all of our nuances in our body sitting on the stool. And they had a tenor saxophone initially, but after, I guess, videotaping me, they changed it to my exact setup. My Yanagasawa 991 gold-plated brass saxophone with the Van Doren mouthpiece. And it was an alto. So they've just really captured the essence of everyone's movements. Linda O on bass. I don't know if you all know her, how she plays, but the character is perfect. And I'm really thankful for this opportunity and what it serves, going back to what we're talking about, sexism and, culturalization, and really trying to integrate to really reconstruct the image of what jazz looks like and bringing it to our children earlier so that they know what a saxophone is. They're not calling it a flute. Or they know that little Black girls or little girls in general know that, okay, hey, I can play an instrument too. They did it in Pixar. So to me, that was probably the biggest blessing in redefining this whole scope and shape.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's exactly what it is. When I watched that film, I said to my daughter, see, you can do that. Mm-hmm. Right?
That's it. And it taps into your purpose. That's the whole thing. What's your spark? They didn't use purpose, but they used the term spark. And speaking to oh, his name is escaping me, but the executive writer, it was just Tom, the executive writer, we had dinner with him the night before, and he was sharing with us what inspired this story. And he said that he had a newborn son, and he was looking at his son and saying, what is your purpose? Just from that moment came this script and this whole story of really all of us tapping into our spark and our purpose, especially now during this pandemic. To me, it was perfect when it came out, because it was actually supposed to release in June, the beginning of June, and because of that pandemic, they pushed it back. But I think all of us as artists have had to sit back and reassess what we're doing. And I know even myself and a lot of my close friends are like, is this what I still want to do, is be, musician? It's causing all of us to kind of reconsider and refocus, like, why? And to me, why is always the directive to what and how. That's always the transitional point. And it's sitting here in the Purple Room like, shoot, I don't feel like practicing. For what? I don't have any gigs coming up. I don't feel like writing a new album, but I got to, but I have to go back to why. What's the essence? Instead of being caught up in this cyclic motion of just doing because that's what we do. But now we're having to reassess and go internalize and see what we have to reassess within ourselves as to why. And hopefully come out stronger, in a fruitful way, that we're in the midst of planting all these seeds, that we're able to see the fruits of our labor in our reassessment.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Tia. It's been such a pleasure to have you chat with the community today. Such a pleasure to hear you speak, to get so many questions. And I hope we can bring it back around and here, and we'll be rooting for you. We'll be rooting for you in March for that Grammy. And
actually, that was 2 years ago.
2 years ago, yeah.
And Wayne,
I got so confused.
I didn't get it. It was way shorter.
Oh my gosh, how embarrassing.
I know. Oh, no, it's fine. It's fine.
It's not fine. But what was that about failing publicly and in a really big way? So good. So good to be. I don't know if people want to just show on their screens and just thank Tia, and then we'll shut it down. But
and I do want to say, Hannah, thank you, everyone. I feel your energy first and foremost, and Dean Acosta and all of the leadership there. I'm a firm believer that an institution takes on the characteristic and the spirit of their leaders. And you all have a very sweet and beautiful spirit at Humber College. And I just want to say thank you for having me. Hannah, you've been amazing and so graceful. And all of the other teachers who are on, just stay encouraged during this virtual time. Know that we're going to come out of this together. Keep your eyes on the prize, We got to remind ourselves and remind each other, and just stay encouraged and inspired, whether it's cooking some great meals, watching some great movies, or, playing some long tones, writing some music.
Thanks so much. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye. God bless.